Hi all, Randy Green here, and welcome to Becoming a HAL Project Changemaker, or just a HAL Changemaker, Course 1. Originally, this material was made for the 6 months of HAL Project Changemaker news, which was technically meant as, was in the beginning meant to just be kind of the news for people that are change makers. But then I thought, well, the news, as we know with this reality, everything's interconnected, right? So the news of the part of reality affects how we are as change makers. And what is a change maker? And what are the implications of being a change maker? And what do we need to do to effectively work as change makers? And all of these good questions then arose, not just kind of pointing out for a person like me that has been working as a change maker for a very long time with the highest priority goal of trying to get as many as possible to be able to resume their original solar system energy system, as well as regaining the ability to do the elevation work so that we can follow the transition of our system back into density 1 and hopefully, sorry, there was a Danish word there, and hopefully jumping right back into their original cycles of progression somehow, somewhere, all depending on how far we get in the reconstruction of our original energy system, be it humanoid or human, true human. And there is a distinction to be learned there. So for those of you who are kind of, perhaps you have come across this and you think, well, HAL Changemakers, that's something to do with society, to do with the environment, to do with providing clear water to the nations of all humans on this planet, then that's definitely part of it. But for those of you who are doing the progression work, being a change maker is connected to our creational projects. These two things go hand in hand. We're here talking project management as well as what we need to do to be change makers, because as we go through the processes of working with energy and working with our own energy system and doing the progression work, we will learn that we first and foremost work from reality as energy, and then we manifest that into the physical reality. But the physical reality is an artificial program, so it's not just as in having all of the good intentions in the world that we want to put this idea or this project into manifestation, but it actually goes into what we call defying the original solar system reality laws of energy, as well as working within an artificial program that is built to only allow few things to come into manifestation and only allow few projects that are under the different factional ruleship to become something that is allowed to be manifested inside this reality. So we might have the great ideas of the world, and we might have all of the good features that are supposed to be there as change makers, but we will discover surely as we move along that this is not as easy as we think. And I'll return to that later on in other types of videos. And it will, of course, not other types of videos, but later videos where I will look into some of the challenges I got when I went to Australia, because I actually went to Australia for many reasons, but one of them were as well, because we never just do one thing, right? We have personal reasons and we have emotional reasons. We have dreams about where we want to go. For instance, I never really felt at home in Denmark. I live here. I'm in a body that was born here. But normally, whenever I used to enter into this reality later on under the old world order after the hijacking, I would go to Britain. I would, let's just use that word, incarnate, which is not correctly. I would resume my physical existence inside this reality in an operating vessel, which I used to have in storage in Britain. And I used to work through one of these where I would shift my energy system and go into one of these of my own engineering physical vessels, where I would exist within a family setting that were, at the times where it was possible, were some of the original humans of an earlier version of our projects, etc., etc. So that kind of sounds like science fiction, right? It could be a program, it could be a false illusion of a memory that is not accurate. But that's because when we talk about this reality as well, the reality program that we're a part of has different timelines, and that scenario of Britain and my incarnational features might actually be on a higher level of this reality program we're a part of, which is where, quote unquote, the elite are operating. We are having absolutely alien races that are present in our planet in human form, but they operate on a different set of timelines, and their relative reality is somewhat very different than ours. And that's why we're only seeing them as some of the billionaires and some of the ones that are having a huge level of success. And we are thinking, oh, we can have the same success because we've been deluded to think so. But the matter of the fact is that everything that they are working with works in a different way. Even the way that their money not procreate, because it kind of is, the money they have in the bank is within a specific energy configuration of virtual reality settings. Let's just call it that. So that means that their money in the bank will grow in a different way. It works in a different way. The way that they can use these monetary systems work in a completely different way than the rest of us inside this reality. And in this reality, this version of reality, I am in a physical form that is enslaved. So therefore, I don't have the same possibilities as what I used to have when I was part of what we could call the humanoid networks. That was part of the alien implanted information networks. So this is some of the things that we are to learn as well. And there are differences, not just as in kind of that these people used to be normal people. They are not their bloodline. They are working in a relative reality that's very dissimilar to ours. And we're working inside this one where we have workers and breeders and the ones that are enslaved and the ones that are imprisoned. And that's something entirely else. And we have a sub-level as well where the ones that are really in the cycles just to wear out and cease to exist, that's just been dumped here, are also part of our reality. And sometimes we crosses timelines, sometimes we come across each other. But most of the time, it all comes down to energetic and genetic affinity. So technically, if I were to get back on that level of reality where I would have certain prerogatives and certain allowances that goes with the alien inserted planetary networks, would be that would allow me to work in a specific way, which I used to do. And that allows these people to work in a specific way. You can call them a visible breakaway civilization. They are part of this world, but they are not part of this world at all. They live by a completely different rule set. Okay, so that's one thing that needs to be taken into consideration, this understanding. And as when I went to Australia, I had this idea that perhaps if I went back then or back there, since this body has its first incarnations in Australia as part of some of the very ancient civilizations that existed in Australia before the indigenous people of Australia, the Aboriginals, there were other types of civilizations there. So I thought that perhaps if I got this body back into the original configuration with the original timelines of this body, I might be able to clear it from the root level, and by that reconnect to some of the ancient technologies down there, and by that recreate some of my original capacities that I used to have when I was in physical form. And that alongside with also the idea of, I would love to move to Australia, because at that time I had all these grand ideas of what Australia was and wasn't, and I never felt at home in Denmark, and Britain is not really where I want to go as things are now. So I just thought, well, that would be a good alternative. So that was also part of the plan, alongside with a lot of other stuff. And I teamed up with some of the factions down there and some of the colonizers that were part of the Old World Order. And we're here talking about 2016, where the Old World Order program began to fall apart. And at the time, there were some of the Old World Order races that actually thought that perhaps I could come in, activate some of that ancient technology, and by that assist them in keeping up the shield technology, removing some of what we call the dark infusions of the planetary grid beneath Australia, and so on onward and so forth. And in that also perhaps assist with some of the flaws of their hybrid projects, so that their humans would be cleared of some of the issues that is in the human projects around our planet under the old world order colonizing races. So that was part of some of the what was going on as well. So you see, there is, when we talk about really being change makers in this reality, we are working from within what we could say the physical level of reality, what we are in our human form, the base program conditionings and configurations that goes with the emotional field and the mental field, and what we have been introduced to as this is reality, and by that being brainwashed to see this as reality, and that's all there is, and how it works, all depending on what segment of reality that we are part of. Again, talking about the alien inserted or alien information planetary networks, which are inserted using either alien crafts or cube technology. And if you're part of these realities and linked up to the timelines that they produce, as well as what are the ramifications of that. And some of the, what we call the status I had in Denmark and what was dormant before I went to Australia got dismantled there. And then the battles I had to take in Australia and some things I discovered when I was down there, which I will return to because that will be part of our Changemaker project issues that we're going to have if we really are going to change this reality. Some of the technologies I saw, some of the what was going on, I saw that more clearly in Australia, because here in Denmark, things are very confined within a specific reality program that keeps up the appearances of the highest good of the many, which it technically is to a large degree compared to many other places in the world. We have a huge security net here in Denmark that are taking care of the weakest within our society. So we are different in many, many ways, and we have some very, very strong democratic values, which the workers in Denmark have fought for over 200 years, if not more. And we never had a strong nobility, and we never had this strong, what we could call conservative perception of things, because we are ancient warriors, we are Vikings, we are connected to what we call the land, we are farmers, and we are workers. So there is a different orientation compared to some of the other countries around the world, where the focus is more on the elite and giving the prerogatives to the elite, where I can say in Denmark, we are very focused on, and as well as other Scandinavian countries, very focused on taking care of the little man and the little woman at the bottom of the food chain, so that everybody get as much what we call a suitable life for a human being. So that goes with free education, it goes with healthcare, it goes on a whole lot of levels of what it means to be human and be a functional human, where most is as what we call funded or financed by tax, which means we have a very, very high tax in Denmark, but at the same time, we are all chipping in so everybody gets the same possibilities for education, free education, college education, university education. All of that is for free, so you just have to apply for it. So it comes down to skills and knowledge, as well as there are also 25% are allowed to come in, even though they don't have the highest grades. They can come in on what we call merits of having worked other places and gathered what we could call skills in other ways than what we call physical studies or formal education. So there are this is a huge difference, and that is of course in when I look back and think about what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do here, I think it's in that way, even though I have not chose to be in this body, but I'm trying to make the best out of the circumstances I'm in, and there's the plus side and the negative side, the pros and the cons of everything, and figuring out saying, okay, perhaps that foundation is not so bad when we're talking about being change makers and trying to make the world a better place, but it also has its flaws, as in kind of Denmark as a society. As I said, we're not really elitist, so we don't really give much room for people that want to pioneer and break away from the mass consciousness, whereas it's quote unquote should be easier in countries that are allowing from the rags to riches, as in you are making your own life scheme understanding, which we also know is not always the case, because if this is already decided by birthright, right? If you're bloodline, you will become rich. If you're not a bloodline, you will remain a worker, or you'll just scratch the surface of what is possible. So that's also some of the issues when we talk change makers. We might think we are living in a civilized society where we have so much more opportunities now than what we had 500 years ago and so forth. But 500 years ago, people were living in more or less the same ways as we are, not with the technology and not with how they perceive reality and how we perceive reality due to the technology and the way that we are being entertained, quote unquote, with a lot of virtual reality, movies, internet, what have you. Of course, they didn't have that. But the struggle to regain our original consciousness potentials have been the same for the last 15,000 years. So we can say the physical program might have changed, by the inner programs, the inner fight, the inner battle with the quote unquote gods, the aliens that are here, is the same. That has not changed. The understanding of it, the way we can work with it, has changed definitely. Because in 10,000 years ago, or 5,000 years ago, let's just do 5,000 years ago, humans on our planet had no technological skill, as in cubes, crafts, huge advancement within the alien technology, which we are getting more and more understanding of today because we're seeing the crafts. They saw it as well, but they interpreted it in a different way. Of course, there were few that knew, but the majority didn't know what it was. The priesthood, some of the priesthoods in the large temples in Mesopotamia and the Mayan culture and the Inca culture and these kind of things, they were in connection with the quote unquote gods. So they knew, but they only got portions of reality envisioned. So they only saw aspects of it and not the entirety of it. So this is, again, some of the things in human history that we are to understand when we're doing the change makers. We need to put all of these pieces of the puzzle into an overview of understanding. Okay, it's not just about having the great idea. It's not just about creating the funds for this great idea. It's not just a physical object that we are to create that will change the world, because any gadget will not really change the world. What changes it is the marketing, quote unquote, around it, the psychological marketing around it, as in this is something you need kind of thing, making people think that this is something that will make their life better. And that is what is part of the what we call manipulation of consumer manipulation that makes the gadgets desirable for the general population, thinking, oh, this will make my life so much easier or what have you. Some of these things we will go into. So when we talk about becoming a change maker, it's connected to our creational projects, but it's also connected to psychology, and it's connected to the sciences, and it's connected to the issues with implementation. And in the issues with implementation comes both the physical level, as in kind of the physical aspects of what we want to change, but it also goes into the psychology of ourselves and of others, and it goes into the sciences of reality and the sciences of what we want to create, and it goes way beyond that. So we are having a spectrum of understanding of what it actually means to be a change maker. In the progression work courses, I'm talking that the focus there is to recreate the original energy system and to regain some of our original higher order scientific capacities, not just the sciences, but also what kind of capacity goes with being able to process that type of science. So we need to develop our brain into being able to process density energies. And not until we have that double awareness of being both aligned within the neural networks of frequencies, as well as being aligned in the density energies of the other worlds, and reconnect to the original society that we used to be part of on both levels of our existence, the one we are now and the one we used to be, can we use these as an opposition to gain certain things, let go of certain things, transform certain things, and transmute, and all of these difficult issues that goes with the progression work. So in this course material that is made as I go along over a period of 6 months, actually with the remaining part of 2022, as I said, were originally put in as the whole Project Changemaker news, which is why it's called that in the videos. But don't get confused, because as I began making this course material, I realized, okay, this is something that I have been missing out on. And whenever I create a product, whether whether it's a course material or it's a book or it's videos or whatever it is, it's always a process. I have an idea, which goes with being an inventor, and then I begin working with the idea and let the idea unfold its information system. And by that, I am changing the project. I am making it into more types of configurations. I'm following it as it shows me I can be used on that level and I can be on that level. So it's basically made for the whole project Changemaker news, because there I realized when I began making that, oh yeah, I have to kind of explain what it actually means to be a Changemaker. And as I began explaining that, I just thought, wow, this is a course in itself. This is some of the solutions that I need to create for people so that they can do it as self-study course. Because when I'm doing my progression work conversations with people that are trying to get into the creational project, they want to find some new types of work, they want to create something new, they come up with the struggle of being a change maker. And that is within normal business. That's a whole psychology in itself. You can look up the psychology of change and being a change maker and being an innovator or entrepreneur and project management and all these kind of things. You can look a lot of that up free on either Coursera.org or you can find it on YouTube. And there you can get a lot of inspiration, say, okay, this is something that people are working with within the base program as well. So I'm going to put that in because we're working on that level too, all depending on what we want to implement. But we are also working on the psychological level, which most change makers are not really working with. They just work with their great idea of some sort of technology or gadget that would change the world, right? Perhaps make them rich or whatever's driving them. Or they are social entrepreneurs. They want to make things right in certain parts of the world or the local community or what have you. But they are not educating themselves into the resistance in the people around them, in the group dynamics in the people that they're working with, what it means to be a leader within where you want to make changes, whether you're doing it within a group of people or you're just doing it on an individual basis, being kind of just a change maker of your own energy system, because that's also some part of the process. And the whole understanding of when we talk about what Gandhi said as be the change you want in the world. And that is kind of going with the first commandment, as in kind of be unto others as you want them to be unto you. You have to be what you want to manifest. So that's the first law of everything that kind of goes with who and what we are, the law of the one, principle one that goes with principle one, law number one, and rule number one. And that is the first step in this one. So we are having to be a change maker. It's not just about creating the brand new product or technology. It's also a psychological feature, and it goes with sciences. And then there's the whole issue of implementation, which is one of the greatest problems in all of what we call change maker issues, whether it is within a company where you're trying to change the culture or you're trying to implement new technology or you're trying to make changes in society, or just trying to change your family dynamics. You come up with a good idea, you try to change that within your family dynamics. You will see this resistance of change. And in the Changemaker course material, I will work my way through all of these layers. So I don't have to do it in the progression work conversations, because people again and again and again saying, oh, I have this great idea. I want to implement this. I want to do this. And then not to bog people down or to take away their grand idea, but I work from that level of understanding. Well, naivety will get you so far. But if you kind of train yourself to whatever you're going into, of course, you can't know it all because you have to experience it to a certain degree before you fully understand it. But once you then experience it, at least you've done the course material, then you can go back and re-listen to some of these issues, because I will not just call it a video 1, 2, and 3, but I will give them titles so that you can go back and say, oh yeah, I remember that entanglement issue. Oh yeah, I remember when I was blind to that issue. And now I've experienced it. Then you go back and listen to the videos again. And then it will make much, much more sense, because then you have experienced it. Because I'm pretty sure as our planet will reset, we will have more and more that are beginning to see beyond the veil, as it said in the old days, looking into the density one energies and really beginning to understand what we are actively doing or effectively and actually are dealing with here when we talk about becoming change makers, whether it's just local as within within ourselves, or it's within our family settings, or it is in a community, or it is in a society, or it's on a more national basis. It all depends on how far you can extend your energy system and the sphere that you are technically, the influential sphere you're creating around yourselves when you're doing the progression work. And this sounds all nice and neat, but as with everything, when we're talking about people that have worked with something for a very, very long time and have been doing the trial and error and have moved beyond the naivety and the infantileness of being infantile in their perception of reality, thinking everything is so simple, because that's what we think when we begin a new neurological network in our brain. We always envision, oh, this is simple, this is just whatever. And then we get into the middle of it and then we discover perhaps not that simple. And then we learn the environment that we are part of. And that's where we do our SWOT analysis, where we understand our strengths, our weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And we learn to work within that matrix of these 4 different angles to things, where we work psychologically within the Trinity system as well, both the matrix of strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, but we superimpose on that one also a trinity that goes with the psychology, the sciences, and the implementation. So we are having a 7-layered understanding of how to work as change makers. So that is some of the things I want to put into this course material as well. So just to recap, so you kind of understand, this was originally made for the whole project Changemaker News, where I had a specific idea of how I wanted to share the information for the stakeholders that were trying to be changemakers. But at the same time, I also realized once I began, there is so much background information that needs to be taken into consideration. And I thought there, with this brutal English expression, 2 birds with 1 stone, I don't like it. It's a hunter expression. In Denmark, we actually call it to take 7 flies out, which I feel is more appropriate, right? Because nobody really likes flies, and birds are kind of, anyways, never mind. But the point being, to kind of do a lot of stuff at the same time and touch bases with different levels of what it means to be changemaker, both as the news, but also as the educational background that we need to have, the understanding of the sciences, the spectrum we are operating within, the psychology of self, others, and reality, and the perception of reality, as well as what are the challenges as a changemaker, what are the psychodynamics behind being a changemaker, because most people, whenever they are learning something new, they always think it's about the skills and the sciences. They don't go into the psychological processes, which is one of the reasons why a lot of things fall to the ground. Because the hardship of studying, the hardship of changing, the hardship of implementation, and I'm deliberately using the word hardship here, because this is part of maturity. This is the infantile youngster thinks that everything is possible, which it is. But as you mature and you grow older and you learn reality from a more complex level of information systems, you understand that here we are actually boggling with information systems. We are working with energy that we need to transform. We need to work with that type of energy to allow it to work in our favor and not as a counterforce. And we need to work with these complex information systems where the main priority is to develop our neural network into working in density energies, as well as being more advanced within frequency spectrum, which means general sciences and the understanding of business structures, project management, psychodynamics, which goes to the emotional field, the whole understanding of how do you actually integrate something into society, how does the base program actually work, how does it work now, it's being altered due to the event program of the aliens or the grays, and all of this comes into this huge pattern of what it actually means to be a change maker. So that is tying a bow on a lot of the themes that I've been talked about with people here and there as they try to go into their different creational projects, just to discover that creating something in this world is just more than good intentions. Same as creating a really good relationship, if you want to be in that one, is more than just love. It takes work, it takes effort, it takes understanding, it takes processes, of psychological issues, of transformative processes, of solutions, of how to work with this effectively, and the ability to have good ideas, not get lost in the ideas, but actively work with how do I take these ideas and put them into some practical features I can actually use in my life, and then begin the implementation process. And what does that mean? How do we effectively implement this? What is possible? And again, how does this reality program work? Do we really want to implement into this reality anyways, or are we just going to use our creational project as something where we're just earning enough money so we can pay our bills, and that's it? It's just a way to gain freedom. So this is also an aspect of your creational project. What is that about? Is it just to earn money, become rich? That's the base program orientation. But a progressive human says, no, I am creating to develop our energy system. I am creating so I can unfold my highest potentials into this physical form, from where I can change reality, from where I can transform my energy system, from where I can undo the effects of the timeline event. And if a product comes out of it that is sellable, then it will not just only be for the highest good of me, it will also be for the highest good of others. So it will have a dual effect on me and others in society in a manner that goes with the highest purpose of whatever we're creating. And for me, whatever I am creating all ties into at the top of the pyramid of all the things I'm creating, to allow people to regain the knowledge of how to do the elevation cycles and get back to the original worlds and out of this matrix that we are part of. And I'm not here referring to the Matrix, the movie The Matrix, but the LPU, technologically driven reality setting that is slightly artificially created for the purpose of the ones originally that did not follow the first elevation cycles a very, very long time ago. So for me, this is tying the bow or ending the cycle of a project I began zillions of years ago, literally before the timeline event, where there was no time, before any of these realities existed, and long, long before any of us ever came to be in this universal structure. So all of that is part of why we do what we do. That should be part of our creational project. So we kind of know the highest goal of it. And then we need to learn how to divide it into smaller goals that can then be achieved as I'm working with constantly upgrading my websites, constantly making course material, working from different angles to create all the information that is needed in the pattern of progressional work, of how to work in this reality, how to earn an income where we are not under contract, where we're not working under some alien faction, but actually regain our original rights as a free person to have our own business, our own jurisdiction, and be part of the timelines we choose from where we will manifest the energies of the reality field as it originally used to be, and not sustaining on some of the APINs or the alien inserted planetary networks, or which all call the alien information planetary networks, because they work in both ways. They're inserted, but they also work with information. So it is information that supports the energy system of the humanoids that are present in human form. So we can go back to the original network, but also understanding that the original network is not in a pristine state, as I talk about in the transition science course material. And from that angle also understands this is probably going to be more complex. So therefore, we should also be adaptable in our understanding of the products that we're creating. That's why I call them process products, as well as being in the understanding that our creational project, creation is not just about manifested things. Creation is about energy and consciousness that develops into its highest potentiality, that transforms itself into the highest purity rate, that transforms itself into the high standards of the vibrational field, so that the timelines will be of the highest possibility of progression. And then we develop into the highest progression rate, where we use our radiation, creational, architectural features of our radiation field to create new types of realities where everybody has the possibility of developing themselves into the highest good of all involved in that reality field. So this, we could say that's a pretty lofty kind of goal to have. But these are the goals. If we want to combine the progression work with the creational project, this is where we put everything we have learned in the progression work course material into some sort of implementation. And implementation is not just in the physical world inside the enclosure and this artificial frequency-based program and creating something that is tangible. It is also energetic, and it connects with the flow of energy that goes through our transformative energy system. So just to kind of get, whenever we start with something, we begin at the highest level so you get the understanding, this is the goal of this course material. And you'll think, whoa, am I going to go to that level? How am I going to go to that level? But that is what we will unfold over the different videos and the different podcasts and the different course material. So which will not be written. This is just going to be a verbal. This is just going to be podcast where I will share these ideas, because this is not a matter of writing something down in the linear language, which goes with the frequency energies. This is about learning to work with information systems in energy patterns, and by that understand the complexity of the patterns of change that we are to engineer ourselves, that goes with the complexity of our energy system that is composed of 6 different layers of information systems, so that we understand that whole scale or spectrum of energies that we are made of and the reality we are interacting with on all of these different levels, and at the same time use our creational project to manifest and implement, whether it's just energetic, as part of who and what we are in our self-understandings processes. So we see ourselves as a progressive human, because no matter whatever comes our way, we are always responding to it according to the original rules, principles, and laws of our reality field. And that is how we're going to make it through whatever is being hit or sent our way and hit us energetically and try to throw us off our path over and over and over again. Because there's absolutely no doubt that this reality that we're currently part of, and as it is right now, is not interested. The ones that are running the game here, the ones that are setting the rules of the game here right now, they are not interested whatsoever in the ones within what we call the breeder-slave worker programs to get their freedom, the path of liberation. And that is also some of the things I want to touch ground with a little bit here. I'm not going to go into, these are the methods and this is the energy work that you need to do, because I've already done that in the progression work. You've got the whole transition science classes where you get all of these instructions and ideas of how to rebuild the transformative energy system. Whether or not you succeed is up to you, and the ability you have to work with energy through trial and error and practice again and again and again and again. It takes years, perhaps a whole lifetime. And then when we talk about the alien technology and how to deal with this, a part of the advanced energy work, which I touch enough ground with these technologies to kind of get a foundational understanding of what it is. But as with everything, you only learn to clear these things by doing, by encountering it, by actually seeing it and working with it. And to be able to do that, you need to have cleared your heart field, which is part of the transition science and the basic concepts and all the psychological work that you need to do there, which is why I is also working on a branch that will come later on with the advanced psychology, where we really can begin to go into the 9 layers of the emotional field and work with that in depth, and not just the preliminary explanations and the sciences behind which I have talked about in the whole transition science classes. There I talk about the sciences behind the emotional field in the 9 layers, but we still need the practicality of it, how to effectively work with that. And that needs to be in some kind of context where that makes sense. So that is also a branch on its own. So you see, being a change maker, it's not just about creating a gadget. It's about creating a new perception of reality. It's about creating a new perception of yourself. And it's about stretching everything you are into some new version of yourself, where you truly understand that change makers are a very rare bunch of people that has a high degree of resilience and adaptability and the ability to really fight for what they believe is the right thing to work with, but also have the patience and the diligence and the ability to work with things step by step, to take ideas and put them into practical applications, to take something that is lofty and ground it into something that is usable for others and can be taught and explained and worked with. And the path to get there goes through so much trial and error and so much experimentation that most people have no idea how much effort it actually takes to create that final product that will change, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, or density-wise, the world around us. Just to talk about what Edison kind of said, well, 99% of all of his attempts to create a light bulb failed, but the 1% led to the light bulb that we have been using and are still using today to some degree. And that is what it means to be an inventor and a pioneer and a change maker. The success rate is very little, but it's not just about creating the product. It is just as much about enjoying the process that goes there, as well as enduring the process that leads to that product that will make a change, whether it's a physical product or it is what we call an information product, or it's a teaching product, or it's a psychodynamic product, or it's something else, as working with what we call a new type of psychology is also a product. So there are many different products, quote unquote. They don't have to be tangible. As this future of this reality is moving, yes, we do have alien technology, but they are not tangible as our technology is. They are flexible and they are changeable. So we will discover that everything in the future, and those of us who are moving into the futures, whether it's here or in another system, that's part of our understanding that the tangibility, the rigidness in our linearity thinking must be evolved. That's the first basic step. Our comfort zone must be adaptable. Our resilience to change must be developed, and our understanding of the dynamics of change and the psychodynamic challenges that goes with being an evolving human must also be something we take into consideration and must be learned. It must be learned to be in these processes of change and accept it and contain it and be okay with it and use it for your own advantage, not as a manipulation, but as a skill set of being a highly evolved human. Thank you.